and welcome to another exciting edition of Old School, New School. I guess I'm the old school part. I'm Wil Masisak. He's Jude Allume, probably the new school part. You can follow us at OSNSFB on Twitter. That's like Old School, New School Football. And you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, on Spreaker, on Apple Podcasts, on Google, whatever they call their podcast platform. Yeah, we got it all. We are so social that we almost are like in the same room with each other, even though we're not. Speaking of talking football, which is what we do on this show and all over the interwebs, let's talk some football, Jude. It's week 2 of the free agency season, which is not as good as a regular football season, but it gives us something to talk about every week.
It definitely does,
And sure enough, a lot of new stuff this week. It seemed like the week 1, there was a lot of wide receivers moving around. Week 2, it seems like it was all wide receivers moving.
Yeah.
What wide receiver free agent signing did you want to talk about first? What's the one that jumped out to you?
The one that jumped out to me is probably the one that kind of also surprised me. I knew it was a possibility, but in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, like, this isn't a piece that they need. But it was the Giants signing Kenny Gallada, 4 years, $72 million. Don't get me wrong. The guy is talented, absolutely. But I feel like they have a wide receiver, a number one wide receiver that they're confident in. And, what's his name? Slayton?
Darius Slayton.
Darius Slayton. Thank you very much for the assist. They just signed John Ross. They already have Sterling Shepard. I feel like they like that group there. And then it's kind of like, you're adding a little bit more to an already healthy group when you add Kenny Gallada. And then for me, it's like, I like it because it's like, okay, if everything clicks, this can be a really good offense. You get Saquon Barkley back. You get Evan Ingram, and he's a great tight end, receiving tight end at least. They also signed Kyle Rudolph, who's a good receiving tight end, but will also add that blocking dimension for you. And this is a solid group. So it's like, you didn't need it, but I'm not mad at you going out and getting Gallada. And now it just comes down to the age-old question, which Danny Dimes are we going to get? Are we going to get the guy who shows flashes and can make plays with his legs and can make those passes downfield? Or are we going to get the guy who likes to turn over the ball? That's his penchant for turning over the ball. Like, this is a group that's just set up right now, I feel like, for big things. It can either be a really great season or a really disappointing season. It's all hinged on Danny Dimes. But for right now, the signing kind of just jumped out at me. Kenny Gallada to the Giants. I just didn't see it coming. I didn't think they were going to go out and do it.
Well, here's what I'll say about the Giants situation and Daniel Jones. Looks they have kind of a stacked wide receiver room now, or at least one of each, some good variety in there. That's an odd thing to do to yourself before you go into a draft that's really deep in wide receiver. So it tells me that they're thinking that they're not even going to bother signing anybody from this draft class, which is fine. Leave that to other people. But the other interesting bit is, Daniel Jones has a lot of problems with his offensive line in front of him, putting pressure on him. When he's in shorts, you run the 7
probably your best offensive lineman.
Yeah. So, the thing is, when he's running against air or running against the 7-on-7 drill, he looks fantastic, right? And a lot of quarterbacks, probably look good in that situation that aren't quite as good when they're under pressure. But I think if you really want to try to make that offense sing, their investment is going to have to be an offensive line. So maybe they felt, hey, we couldn't get any offensive line, so it's a good offensive line draft. We're just going to draft all offensive linemen in this draft. Now, if they actually do that, then I buy this thing. I love Kenny Gallada in a vacuum as a fit for this team, and the big upgrade from Darius Slayton and the other guys they had. I'm not sure.
The one thing I'll say about that is that if you're gonna sign Gallada 4 years, $72 million, you could have kept Zietler, because Gallada, wide receiver, was not a position of need. Offensive line, even if you kept Zeitler was still a position of need for you. You still need to make those upgrades on the line. But you let him walk out and you cut. You didn't let him walk out. You cut him, and then you went and spent big money on this guy. I'm interested in seeing what they do in the draft, or if there's any lineman out there that hasn't been signed that they feel can help change the makeup of that offensive line for them.
Yeah, I would think it's at least a possibility that they're not done with, fiddling with the offensive line, and maybe Zeitler just wanted to go somewhere else, because I can definitely understand that. It's the, offensive line really hinges on the five guys together. So if you're a really good offensive lineman and you're on a team that doesn't really have good offensive linemen around you, can make you look bad, can ruin your, perceived value. So I'm sure that, and if you don't think you're a Super Bowl contender, why not move and go somewhere else? I suppose that's, what happens with that. So the thing about the Kenny Golladay signing that was really outlier was the amount guaranteed, $40 million guaranteed for a 4-year deal, which is a lot. Then I think the next most guaranteed was Corey Davis. Did we talk about Corey Davis last week?
We did not talk about Corey Davis yet. The Jets went out and got themselves a number one wide receiver. Corey Davis, he has the draft pedigree. I think he was taken third overall.
Yeah, top 5 pick. And the thing is, I think he has the potential to be a pretty good player. He played, he started to kind of turn it on last year for Tennessee. But, I think this is a move where it feels like the Jets had to overpay to get a guy because they're the Jets. And it also feels like for Corey Davis, he was playing in a really run-heavy offense. I don't know. He went to New York Jets and went to a run-heavy offense. Again, I don't really run-heavy, but I mean, it's still pretty, it's not exactly a place where they're going to throw the ball all over the yard. So,
especially they still don't know what they're doing at quarterback. So who knows what that offense?
I mean, maybe it'll be Zach Wilson and he'll get his money's worth, But for Corey Davis, I think he just wanted a change of scenery because it felt like he was never going to be as used there as he wanted to be, whether it's because A.J. Brown was on the other side or because they run the football a lot.
That was going to be my point exactly. Like he was drafted to be the number one guy, the guy, and he just found himself sort of playing second fiddle to A.J. Brown. I mean, third fiddle because really that's if there's a run and D team, it's definitely the Tennessee Titans because everything runs through Derrick Henry.
100%, yeah. That's been an interesting question of who is the most run identity team in the NFL? Like Baltimore, Tennessee, Cleveland. All three.
I felt like it was a no-brainer, but Baltimore is a good one too because Lamar is going to run the ball absolutely, but they always have a couple running backs that they just love giving the ball to. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
How do you feel? How do you feel? I don't know if you're happy or sad about it, but your Steelers signing Juju Smith, I feel for a very friendly deal, 1 year, $8 million.
Yeah, and it's not even just 1 year, $8 million. It's the way they did the way they set up the contract. It's only a $2 million hit in the first year, so it's kind of like getting a player that was on the free agent market and still young, and getting him at a price that's like his rookie deal. Maybe I think his cap hit might even be less than if he were on his rookie deal. So from that standpoint, sure, and it to me it bodes well. I mean, I feels like they want to keep him. But it's a strange thing, wide receiver and running backs. We've had sort of touched on this discussion before. Just feels like they're fungible assets. You have them on their rookie deal and you try to get some production out of them, and maybe you carry them over for a year or two past that. But there are just so many wide receivers and running backs coming in all the time that it feels like if you're pretty good at identifying them, that you might as well use them up and go on to the next one. So on one hand, yes, I'm happy that they re-signed him because I like him and I think he adds a lot to the offense. And on the other hand, it's a similar situation to the Giants. Now the Steelers have 4 solid guys that they really like, and maybe that will keep them from being players in the wide receiver draft part, of this year, which would disappoint me because there's a lot of guys out there that can help. But this team-friendly 1 year deal too, maybe it's also about seeing what the market is like next year for Juju Smith-Schuster, because that takes us to T.Y. Hilton, who signed a similar deal, a 1 year,
he got more money
contract, and that felt like another one that was like, let's wait and see what the market's going to be.
I think T.Y. got $10 million, 1 year, $10 million, but it might be $8 million guaranteed.
No, it's 8.
But,
1 year 8. Spotrac is reporting. So, sometimes they're wrong, but that's what it says he got from Indy.
Gotcha. I mean, I see Ty getting $10 million, and I'm like, I mean, even without Ty getting his money, I felt like Juju could have definitely went elsewhere and got way more money. But he already made it known that he wanted to stay in Pittsburgh. He wanted to retire there and just play out his career there. So I feel like that deal definitely works out for you. Without him, you guys have a decent wide receiver core. With him, I think you guys have a hell of a trio at the very least at your wide receiver. No,
they would have had to draft. I mean, they would have had a must need to draft a slot receiver if he hadn't resigned. And now it's like, hey, if they like our wide receiver who's available to them, who's BPA when they come around on the clock, they can do that. But they're not handcuffed into doing it, which is helpful for any NFL team. But like a lot of teams, I think have this with a reduced cap. It's just a year where there's a lot of waiting and seeing about what's going to happen in the future. Yeah. But Juju's career, if he wants to retire in Pittsburgh, man, that could be 15 years from now. Dude is very young. He's 24 right now. There's guys in the draft coming out who are older than that,
I think when he was drafted, he was like the youngest player ever to play in the NFL. Like, he's got a lot of football left in him. The question, though, is like, if he comes out next year and puts up the best numbers of his career, what are you guys going to do then?
Well, I think you're probably, or I'll say at least possibly, out from underneath the Ben Roethlisberger, franchise quarterback contract. So once that happens, then they got room to sign, your TJ Watts, your Minkah Fitzpatricks. If you want to have core pieces on offense that are getting good money, it's a lot more doable to do that in that circumstance than it is now. So they bought a year to figure that out.
I mean, Ben has been already restructured and is getting like a significantly lower amount.
He has almost the same cap hit as Juju. They're both like one is Juju's at like 2.2 million and Ben's at like 3.3 or something, 3.5. So yeah, I'm saying 3.5 of new money for Ben. He had old money from 2 contracts ago that they're paying, they're on the cap, but not what he's making this year. But yeah, I think it's here's the thing: if Juju has a huge year, that probably means that Ben had a huge year and they're going to bring him back too. So it's a catch-22. If Ben doesn't have a very good year, Juju is not going to put up very good numbers. He'll probably re-sign a fairly friendly deal. So maybe it all works out in the end.
You would hope so.
I would hope so. I mean, it's interesting, man. Like teams that have never had a franchise quarterback and won Super Bowls don't understand what it's like once you taste that and then you go 20-some years without it. It's every bit as frustrating for the 20 years as it was fantastic for the 10 years that you had one.
I don't really feel any sympathy for you, man.
I know. I'm saying I don't expect anybody to.
You got a ton of titles under your belt, man. It's all right. You'll be okay. Let's round out free agent wide receivers. I think the last one that I know of, AJ Green signing with the Cardinals. Big move or kind of like whatever?
I mean, I'm whatever on it. AJ Green hasn't really played very well for a couple of years now, and maybe he was just unhappy, and that's part of the reason that he was looked at times like he was going through the motions in Cincy, or maybe he was hurt and unhappy. But I don't know. I'm not sure I see that resurrecting his career going to Arizona. But he is a guy that has talent. I think it's never been the talent that's the question. It's sort of about his, I will call it football character. Yeah, I mean, it's like football character and health for him have been issues the whole time, and it's sort of like yes, he can be healthy, but he's older now, and yes, he can. Maybe his football character stuff was related to problems that don't exist anymore because he's changed locations. But I'm a little bit of a skeptic on AJ. How about you?
I'm taking the opposite approach. I think this might be great for him for a number of reasons. You're playing in Cincinnati. You made it to the playoffs a couple times, but you've never gotten the taste of a playoff victory. Andy Dalton was your quarterback. You had great rapport with him. They booted him. You're playing with a young quarterback. He was promising, but he gets hurt, and now you're playing with a bunch of question marks at quarterback last year. So obviously he didn't really do much of anything last year. Not to mention, he's still going to get like the best corner or, multiple coverages to him, while the younger guys are free to mess around with the one-on-one coverage. So if I'm a nobody quarterback, I'm playing it safe. I'm not going to force the ball up to AJ Green in double coverage. I'm going to go to the guy that's wide open and T. Higgins,
Well, hang on a second now. For Arizona, remind me who the wide receiver is lining up on the other side.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, so I'm saying DeAndre Hopkins is going to get your double coverage. So
absolutely, I'm not saying that's what he's going to get.
Okay, just checking.
I'm saying that's what he might have got last year, which kind of contributes to why he didn't really do much of anything. And then the 2 years before that, he's just battling injury. The biggest question mark for me is is he all the way back from injury? Is he the same guy from before injury? But if he is, and he goes to Arizona, and you've got DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to get all that attention that you're accustomed to, and a number of other pieces. You've still got Larry Fitzgerald if he comes back. You've got Andy Isabella, a bunch of young speedsters on that offense, and you've got a capable quarterback in Kyler Murray. I feel like this might be somewhat of a resurrection for him. I'm thinking like when Brandon Marshall was with Miami and he was just disgruntled and unhappy, or even when Randy Moss was with Oakland. I'm not going to say AJ Green is Randy Moss, so let's just get that out the way. But like that, he's disgruntled, and it's like, oh, is he even trying? He looks like he doesn't want to be there. He's involved in all these trade rumors, and then boom, he goes to New England, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's Randy Moss. I feel like this can be a situation like, oh yeah, that's AJ Green. We still need to respect this man and all that he's done in his years in the National Football League. I like it as like an under the radar signing for Arizona. I feel like they're doing a lot of pieces just to kind of make sure like that heat streak they were on to begin the season kind of lasts throughout the entire season. And I'm kind of excited to watch them play next year.
Yeah, I mean, it could go either way. I'm just a little, like I said, my observations of him, having seen him, a couple times a year at least, and watched, quite a few games other than that, is just that, he just has that reputation that he seems to have a hard time getting out from underneath, that he's just a little bit soft at the the catch point. So you get that talent, and it's so enticing because he can run and he's big and he can jump and, he can catch the ball great and everything, but you put a physical guy on him and he can go long stretches also disappearing. Thing about a guy like Brandon Marshall is, he has the ability to create his own space and create his own catch opportunities in a way that I'm not sure AJ Green does, even at his peak, let alone where he is now. That's my last one.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But to go along with all the receivers, we had a number of cornerback signings. Some guys looking to lock these guys up in new places as well. Who's your favorite cornerback signing?
My favorite quarterback signing, I think I thought Xavier Rhodes being able to be re-signed for $6.5 million. It was similar to those deals that we talked about before for T.Y. Hilton and Juju Smith-Schuster. That's a value buy. He's still a pretty good player. It's kind of a prove it deal. But I think if you get a chance, they're going to have a new quarterback situation in there. But they have a good team, so I feel like he's somebody that can contribute there. And I also thought, the William Jackson thing, we touched on it last week, but William Jackson going to the Washington football team is another one, that a guy that can definitely play. I liked him a lot coming out of college, a lot of length, good football player. And it helps Washington a lot. They're already pretty solid. Aside from the quarterback position, they've been fantastic in a way. So I like those two.
I like Kendall Fuller going, reuniting with Vic Fangio in that defense that he used to run with the Bears, and going over to the Denver Broncos. I think the Broncos are putting together like a really good secondary right now. They've got Fuller now. They've re-signed Simmons. They re-signed Kareem Jackson. I like that secondary a lot. And I like the amount of money that you're getting for a former all-pro corner. He only took $9 million to go over to Denver. I think that's kind of a prove-it deal as well. And, maybe he shows up and he balls out again, then maybe they give him more of a long-term big money contract. But at least for this 1 year, I really like the deal for Denver. And anytime you can get an all-pro at corner, you definitely do it for that price. I feel like you just got yourself a steal. I'll tell you what I don't like, though. I don't like the Giants signing Adoree Jackson for big that money, much money.
Yeah. So that's
He's a decent corner. He's one of those that has the injury bug where he just seems to always be hurt. Missed a ton of games last season, missed a ton of games in the years before that. But the biggest thing for me is that here we are, we have Kendall Fuller, he signs for $9.5. We have Rhodes, he signs for $6.5. Combined total $16 million. In the first year of his deal, Adoree Jackson is going to get $16 million from the Giants. In my head, it probably won't add up like this, but in my head, we could have signed both of these guys instead of Jackson, and then we would add 2 corners instead of 1 for the same money at least next year. So for me, it's just like, if you really wanted a corner, why not go for the best corner who just signed for less money than you're signing this guy?
Yeah.
No shade to Adoree Jackson, but I would 100% rather them have gone and given that money to Kendall Fuller instead of Adoree.
Well, the only thing I can see is, one of two things. I don't know the answer of why they, there was a big sweepstakes for Adoree Jackson. I think there might have been more of a sweepstakes around the league for him than for Fuller, honestly.
I feel like everybody just kind of assumed he was going to go to the Bears because of the fit there.
Right.
Not the Bears, to Denver because of the fit there.
Well, maybe Adoree Jackson, he has return skills, so there's some value if you're looking for, I'm saying it adds a little bit if that's a need for your team. But more importantly, more comfortable playing in the slot. So if what your need is really is a slot receiver, he kind of fits that better, aside from the health issues. Because you play in the slot, it's actually a little bit tougher, more physical, more physically taxing, and so on. So I can see maybe that's why I like Adoree Jackson, but I agree with you. The best ability is availability, and he hasn't necessarily hit that on the head very much. But William Jackson, a guy that missed a whole year. So I guess it's you can't have everything with nice things.
But for other guys, is it like is your absence like a one-time thing, or is this a recurring thing? For Adoree Jackson, his absence is definitely a recurring thing. Like every year is going to be a couple games where he's just not available, and that's not something that I want to pay top dollar for.
Right. Well, he's a really physical guy who's a little bit undersized, and that combination is endearing if you're a fan. But it won't keep you. It'll put you at risk of not being on the field for sure.
Absolutely.
Speaking of tough slot guys, and the sort of thankless job that they have, Mike Hilton, former Steeler, signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. He got a total guarantee of $6 million, which is basically just 1 year. So this is really built like a 1 year deal. It says $24 million, but it's like a 1 year, $6 million deal is what he got. And they have potentially they could walk away after a year if they decided that it wasn't a good match. And the thing about it being a good match is it's not really a fit for what they normally try to do on defense. They generally play a lot of man coverage, which is not his thing at all. He's a guy that's a fantastic blitzer and physical player against the run, and has some flexibility to play cover 3 safety and can move around a little bit, but he's not a guy that's going to line up against slot receivers and just play man against them and take them out. And I wonder if that was a little bit more of he took the top dollar and just wanted to prove that he was worth the money kind of a deal. He's been trying to renegotiate his deal for several years, and because he was restricted, they wouldn't even talk about doing a long-term extension. And I have a feeling that it was sort of like, they probably could have afforded to keep him. But I just feel like he wanted out and he didn't care where he went. And I'm not sure that's a good marriage. What'd you make of that contract?
Majority of players, I'm going to just throw that out there. They're going to go with whoever's giving them the most money. You're not going to find a lot of players that are like, you know what? I'm going to go with this team because I just love it here and I like what we're building. You might find some guys at the end.
Maybe on contract 3, like maybe after you already made your big money, then you're like,
what I was just about to say, certain guys, they're at the end of their careers and they're like, you know what? I want to play for a championship. But when you're a guy still in your prime and you haven't hit that big money contract yet, somebody dangles the most money you've heard ever, you're absolutely going to take it. And you know what? The other thing with athletes, especially I feel like in the NFL, is like if it's almost like you're posing a challenge to yourself. Like I'm going to prove like I can do X, Y, and Z. I can do all these things that they're telling me I can't do, and I can change as a player to fit whatever the team needs me to do. And this is definitely what it is right here. Like, it may not be the scheme that he loves or the scheme that he's a perfect fit for, but it gives him a chance to grow and find out like how he can adjust and become a player that's still capable and able to contribute to what the team is trying to do. So obviously they dangled the money in front of him. He was going to take that money, and now he gets the deal that he's always wanted. Now it's just a matter of like, what is he going to do to show that he deserves it?
Well, to put it in perspective, also, he's played 5 years in the league. This contract, just the guaranteed money for 1 year, is more than he made the previous 5 years combined. So,
absolutely,
Mike Hilton,
absolutely,
he deserved the payday. I mean, he did a lot of great things. He's I like him as a player and as a the persona, and he deserves the money. But it's just I hope the grass is greener enough for him that he doesn't regret the deal. But I guess we'll
absolutely taking the deal. And if it's up to me to show that I can ball and deserve the money, I'm banking on myself 100 times out of 100, man.
Yeah, yep, I hear that.
What about Mr. Super Bowl savior for Tom Brady a couple years ago against Seattle? Today, actually, just signed with the Arizona Cardinals, who seem to be like making a ton of moves as of recently. Another 1 year, $6 million deal, I believe.
This is Darius Butler?
Malcolm Butler.
Oh, Malcolm Butler. Sorry, I got them mixed up. Yeah, I didn't even see that deal come across. So you were on it. I don't know. He's been a player that's funny. Like there's a lot of players like this that play for good teams, surrounded by good teammates who do their job well in good schemes. Who then, when they leave their team, don't look the same. And that's how I would characterize him. When he was in New England, actually, as a college prospect, really terrific. In New England, great fit, good role player, jumped right in. Obviously, made the play of the game in the Super Bowl. Probably should have been the Super Bowl MVP, honestly. He moved, didn't really look like the same guy. Like they just kept waiting for him to kick in and be better. That was in Tennessee, I think, where he went. And I hope that the change of senior again is maybe a better fit for him or something, because I like him I always liked him as a prospect and as a player. A lot of respect for what he did early in his career. But recently, he looks like a guy that needs a change of scenery. So hopefully that works. And like you said, the Cardinals they're trying right now. They're like bringing guys in who haven't looked that good the last couple of years, and it's like, let's try them out.
I mean, they also signed Rodney Hudson. Of course, they signed J.J. Watt earlier. It looks like they're trying to build a roster for a win right now type of ordeal. I don't know how much I love the moves they're making, but I appreciate the effort. They definitely had some talent last year. I don't see any of these moves necessarily taking away from anything that they were doing. So I feel like at the very least they helped themselves a little bit, with all the signings that they've done. Well,
look at it this way. In their division right now, Seattle's got trouble because Russell Wilson's unhappy, and they have, their usual annual, we don't have enough linemen and receivers. And, now their defense is in a rebuild. You got San Francisco, who's got everything except for a quarterback. You have the Rams, who brought in Matthew Stafford, but they also have some issues that they're, leftover cap hell from their previous quarterback. And Arizona still has a quarterback on a rookie contract, which, as I said before, is the time when you can take chances and add pieces and pay people extra money to see. So I feel like it's their window. If they don't do it this year, then there's going to be there'll be some hell to pay. So I think it's, they're going to hell to pay. They won't be able to keep the people that they brought in, or, they will have to try again to reload next year and, revisit it. But I feel like it's an opportunity for them. Do I like them to be a Super Bowl contender? I don't know. Do I like them to be a playoff team and probably win their division? Yes, unless San Francisco figures out a miracle to get a quarterback in this draft.
I think San Francisco goes back to what they did 2 years ago when they made it to the Super Bowl. That defense is coming back healthy. They had so many injuries last season. Maybe take away from what Garoppolo has to do, but he was also injured a lot last season too. So I'll cut him some slack there. They're going to run the ball, play great defense, and they'll be a playoff team at the very least, I think. So again, that's a tough division to come out of, because even Seattle, with all the issues that they've got, you can never count them out. I believe that the Rams got better by adding Stafford, even though he doesn't have any playoff experience under his belt, or at least not any playoff wins under his belt. I still think they got better. So that's a tough division. Yeah. I think they need to do a lot more before we can say Super Bowl contenders. I'm going to wait and see what they do in the draft before, giving them any sort of credit towards Super Bowl at all.
Yeah, I don't think you can evaluate any team at this point of free agency before the draft. Mm-hmm. It's like you can guess, who's got fewer holes, but until they line up for that week 1 or even week 2 or even week 4 in the regular season, I don't think you necessarily know what teams, which teams are good or not. You don't really know until you get into the heart of the season. So I guess we'll find out. But that's some, I don't know. I'm sure there'll be a little bit more free agency dribbling in over time. There's some of those teams like the Steelers and others who like to play late in free agency. I'm sure we'll make a move or two. But in the meantime,
out there,
in the meantime, we got a pretty good handle on it, I hope. And maybe next week we'll do a little bit more talking about the upcoming NFL draft, because now we're starting to get, real close into the draft season now. Yeah. Pro days are happening all over the place. And all that kind of stuff. So as a preview, I suppose we'll get into that next week. I'm going to ask you, though, for your last word today, anything in particular you want to hit on before we head out of here?
Just someone who's still out there, as you alluded to, Jadeveon Clowney. I'm perplexed as to what can you make of him, because he's played on like 2 or 3 consecutive prove-it 1-year deals, and I can't say for sure that he's necessarily proven anything. But I'd say still he's one of the guys that's going to garner the most attention on the market right now. Somebody's going to take a chance on him, because there's never not a need for elite pass rushing. And at the very least, he's going to demand some sort of double team and attention to free up somebody else. Just not sure if he's worth that big money that he seems to believe he's still worth.
Yeah. Remains to be seen. I mean, here's the thing. Baltimore needs an edge rusher. Cleveland needs an edge rusher. There's people out there that where he would be a good fit. So either he's asking for too much money, or teams are just kind of waiting.
He's asking for too much money.
Yeah. Speaking of Baltimore, my last word is thoughts and prayers go out to the Baltimore Ravens in hopes that a wide receiver will actually sign with them someday. I know that they've tried about 5 or 6. I think they've been in on every wide receiver that's been available.
Sammy Watkins just took a visit.
Yeah, so Sammy Watkins is their great hope currently, but it seems like every couple of days they have a new guy that visits, and they're really high on. They think he's going to say yes, and I don't know if they're if maybe NFL wide receivers are basically saying to the NFL, look, man, we think, Lamar Jackson is an amazing football player, but he's not throwing the ball to wide receivers. I don't think I want to go there, So wide receivers are about their touches and their looks,
Absolutely, yeah.
Not everybody is satisfied with an interception every week like you.
Listen, if I'm a wide receiver, basically the MO is, if I want to get signed, take a visit with the Ravens, and then somebody else will sign me immediately after. That's the blueprint for it right now,
I guess. Also, if you're a wide receiver, you're always open. So if you're always open on a team where they never throw it to you, it's probably more frustrating than when you think you're always open, even on a team where they do throw it to you.
I mean, they'll just draft another receiver again.
I think, they'll draft another receiver that doesn't get the ball, and then it's considered to be a disappointment. I wonder what's wrong with this formula. All right. He's Jude Allume. I'm Wil Masisak. Together we're old school, new school. Catch us on the interwebs. Please hit the like button and subscribe anywhere you can hear this on any kind of social media, wherever you get your podcasts or your videos or social media, sports, football talk. Here we got some football ball talk. And in the meantime, we'll join you next week for another edition of Old School, New School. Give it up, fist bump it. Yeah.